Grandma Victoria doesn't want us, does she, Mama? The boy's words cracked through the morning silence like gunfire. Victoria Sterling froze behind the oak tree, her back pressed against rough bark, lungs refusing to work. Her grandson, was crouched at David's headstone, tracing shaky letters across the cold marble with his tiny fingers. Those green eyes, that stubborn cowlick, David's face copy-pasted into a smaller body. Her knees nearly gave out. 9:47 a.m. Riverside Cemetery. Victoria's trembling hands clutched white roses, pristine Ecuadorian imports, $200 a stem, a grieving mother's currency. Just 20 feet away, the young black woman knelt at the same headstone, offering carnations from the gas station, $3.99. Wilted. Same headstone, same tears. Two different worlds. I failed you again, baby, the woman whispered, forehead pressed against the marble. No money for the good flowers. No money for anything. The boy looked up, his eyes a mirror of David's. Victoria's heart stopped mid-beat. Impossibly, yet the math was merciless. David died 4 years ago. This boy was 4. David Jr. The girlfriend Victoria had never allowed into her home. It's the mistake she'd demanded her son deal with privately. And now here she was, bleeding love into the dirt. Victoria's chest burned, her throat threatened to close. DJ, come here, sweetheart. The young mother's voice cracked, carrying both exhaustion and iron. Victoria clawed at the bark for balance. Her grandson, her blood, had been right here every Tuesday. Grieving a father she herself mourned. 20 feet apart, yet oceans away. Heavy boots crunched gravel. Frank Morrison, a cemetery groundskeeper. 23 years of bitterness packed into one man, his eyes sharpened like shovels that had buried too much. Problem here? His voice could cut glass. Amara straightened her back, shielding her son with instinct. Just visiting, Frank sneered, circling them like a hyena testing prey. Premium plots, sweetheart. You got papers? His father? His father? Frank barked out a laugh, sharp and ugly. Lady, this grave costs more than your annual salary. Try again. DJ pressed against his mother's legs. Victoria's gut twisted the same posture David had taken as a boy, hiding from thunder, hiding from bullies. Same fear, same instinct. Please, we're not. Frank's hand shot out, gripping DJ's arm with a violence that turned the child's cry into a knife. Don't touch my son, Amara lunged. Frank shoved her down like she weighed nothing. Her head cracked against the marble of David's grave. Blood painted the name etched in stone. Carnations flew, scattering like dreams never funded. Victoria's phone trembled in her hand. One call, one word. She could end this. She could make Frank disappear. But she stood frozen, just as she had 3 years ago. When David begged her to meet someone special, same poison in her chest, same silence. Mama, why doesn't the mean man like us? Jay's voice, fragile as tissue paper. Some people see skin before hearts, baby, Amara whispered, clutching her son, blood streaking her palm, dignity shining through her tears. Frank spat into the dirt, then kicked soil over the fallen flowers. Next time, bring proof. Or stay away. Amara rose slowly, gathering her child, her scraped palm bleeding, but her pride unbroken. And Victoria Sterling once again did nothing. Amara's hands shook as she gathered each dirt-stained carnation, pressing the broken stems back together like they were pieces of her heart. Daddy would be proud of how brave you are, she whispered, her voice a prayer pressed against the stone. From the shadows, Victoria's heart splintered. This woman, this stranger she had once dismissed, had loved David fiercely, honored his memory, and raised his son with nothing but grit, grace, and gas station flowers. And what had Victoria done? Drowned herself in guilt, pride, and imported roses. As Amara rose, she took DJ's hand. The boy's voice, innocent and piercing, drifted on the wind. Mama, does Daddy know we visit? He knows, sweetheart. He knows. Victoria collapsed to her knees, her designer coat sinking into the wet grass, the earth greedily swallowing silk and status. Her chest heaved, crushed under the truth she'd buried for years. 3 years stolen. 3 years of birthdays missed. First steps uncheered. Christmas mornings absent. A grandson growing up thinking he wasn't wanted because he wasn't. Not by her. The morning sun climbed higher, burning away the mist, burning away excuses. Victoria Sterling, the woman who controlled $2.3 billion in assets, who could bend markets and buy governments, couldn't buy back a single bedtime story. Couldn't erase the sound of David's last phone call. "Mom, you're going to be a grandmother." And her reply, acid-tipped, unforgivable. "Handle your mistakes privately." Those were her final words to her son, a blade she'd never be able to unsink. But his son still lived. And this time, she would not fail. Victoria pushed herself up from the grass, mud streaking the hem of her coat. She pulled out her phone. Her empire had toppled titans. Now it was time to use her power for something that actually mattered. The next day, 2:15 p.m., Riverside Diner. Grease clung to the fluorescent air, thick and unrelenting. Booth 12 sat in the corner, occupied by Victoria Sterling in her armor designer sunglasses and quiet fury. From behind her lenses, she studied the woman working 3 tables over, Amara Brooks. The name tag crooked. The uniform stained. Hair pulled back in a ponytail that screamed exhaustion. David's love. David's legacy. The mother of his child, Victoria's bloodline, more coffee? Mara asked, her voice polite but worn, cracked by double shifts and broken dreams. Victoria gave a silent nod, watching those gentle hands pour. Hands that had laid cheap carnations on an expensive grave with more reverence than Victoria had shown in years. The lunch rush was fading. A handful of customers lingered, half buried in their own distractions. Amara drifted among them like a ghost. Then the kitchen door banged open. Derek Stone, mid-40s, manager's badge crooked like his morals. A soft belly sagging over his belt, hard eyes that hadn't softened since high school, the kind of man who treated power like a weapon, because it was the only thing he had left. Brooks. His voice cracked across the diner like a whip. "Table 6 is still waiting." "I'm getting there," Amara said, calm but tired. "Excuses don't pay rent." Derek stepped in close. Too close. Close enough to let his words drip like venom. "Maybe single mothers aren't cut out for food service." Amara's jaw locked, her lips sealed. She swallowed the insult, not out of weakness but out of survival. Victoria's fingers slid across her phone. For the first time in 3 years, her silence began to feel dangerous. Victoria's rage pressed tight against her ribs, an old familiar pressure she'd always buried under money and silence. But this time, it clawed to the surface. The diner door chimed. A small figure in scuffed sneakers shuffled inside, clutching a backpack slipping off one shoulder. DJ, her grandson. He paused in the doorway, eyes darting nervously around the room. Too small for the world, too fragile for this battlefield of cheap booths and fluorescent light. "Mama." His voice was soft, a thread in the noise. Derek's head snapped up like a predator catching movement. "What's that kid doing here?" "School pickup fell through," Amara said quickly. Her voice trembled, but held its ground. "He'll sit quiet. Promise." "This isn't daycare," Derek barked, voice rising, drawing stares. "Your problems stay at home." DJ shrank behind a chair. His sterling green eyes, David's eyes wide with the same fear Victoria remembered from her son's childhood. Victoria's grip on her coffee cup tightened until porcelain threatened to crack. "Please," Amara begged, her voice breaking. "He's sick today. Breathing problems. I can't leave him alone, not my problem." Derek reached out, his hand clamping around DJ's thin arm. "Don't touch him." Amara lunged, but Derek shoved her back hard. She stumbled into table 6, water glasses exploding across linoleum. The diner froze. Customers stared, phones lifted like vultures circling. Victoria rose from her booth, instinct overriding hesitation. "Excuse me." Derek turned, annoyance curling his lip. "Lady, this doesn't concern." He stopped cold. Recognition hit. Victoria Sterling's face, the face on magazine covers, financial journals, Forbes' power list, was now glaring at him in the flesh. "Ma'am." His tone shifted instantly, slippery with false respect. But the cruelty stayed. Family business, nothing to worry about. But there was plenty to worry about. Jay's tiny chest hitched in sharp, panicked gasps. His lips carried the faintest blue tinge oxygen slipping away. Victoria's blood iced over. She knew this. the Sterling curse. David had collapsed at 6 years old, a hereditary heart condition. Emergency surgery saved him. Now his son was fighting the same battle. "He needs a hospital," Victoria said, her voice low, firm, deadly calm. "He needs to leave now." Derek's grip only tightened. Both of them. Amara dropped to her knees, frantic, checking her son's pulse. "Baby, look at Mama. Breathe slow." "With me," but DJ couldn't. Terror drowned his little face. Victoria's hand found her phone. "I'm calling 911. "Put that away." Derek stepped between them, puffed up with second-hand authority. "No ambulances. No drama. They leave quietly or security drags them out. Let me take them to the hospital." Victoria tried again, her voice a razor. Derek leaned in, smirking. "She leaves. She's fired. Zero tolerance. Brooks, job or brat." The words hit like bullets. A mother's nightmare. Lose income, lose housing, or watch her child die. Amara's hands trembled as she cradled DJ close. Her voice broke, raw and holy. "I choose my son, then clear out your locker." Derek smiled, victory dripping off his teeth. Victoria stared, bile rising. This pathetic man with his greasy apron and small-town power was playing God with her grandson's life. But Derek didn't know who he was dealing with, because Victoria had power too, real power. She turned on her heel, stormed outside, and hit speed dial. "Sarah, I need the Sterling medical helicopter at Riverside Diner." Now, her voice cut like a blade. "Pediatric cardiac emergency. My grandson." Silence. And Sarah's crisp reply, "Dispatching immediately." Victoria exhaled, steel filling her veins. She marched back inside. Derek was still spewing venom. "Maybe next time you'll think before having kids you can't afford." Through the window, a thunderous shadow swept across the parking lot. Sleek, silver, medical grade, the Sterling medical chopper. Rotor blades churned the air, rattling the diner windows. Diners gasped, phones tilted, fries forgotten. Derek's eyes followed the sound, and his face drained pale. What the hell? The helicopter landed, kicking up dust and gravel. A team of paramedics in Sterling medical jackets rushed through the doors, efficient, focused, unstoppable. "We're here for the cardiac patient," the lead medic announced. "Nobody called," Derek sputtered. Victoria's voice cleaved to silence. Every head in the diner turned toward her. She slid off her sunglasses, letting the world see exactly who stood before them. Derek's mouth fell open. The mighty had just been reduced to nothing. The paramedics moved fast, lifting DJ with tender precision, Amara's hands clinging to her boy as oxygen masks and monitors surrounded him. Victoria didn't look away. This time, she would not fail. Amara climbed aboard the helicopter without hesitation, maternal instinct, trumping fear, confusion, or questions. A mother doesn't hesitate when her child's life hangs in the balance. As the blades roared above, Victoria turned back to Derek, her voice cold as marble. "You're fired." His face twisted. "Can't. I can." She pulled out her phone, thumb steady despite the adrenaline in her veins. "Sarah, buy this restaurant today." The words sliced through the diner, louder than the helicopter outside. Derek's face drained white, then flushed red, then ballooned purple. "Ma'am," on speakerphone, Sarah's crisp tone delivered the death blow. "Purchase complete. Riverside Diner is now a Sterling Holdings property." The diner erupted in whispers, gasps, phones held high to capture history in real time. Every customer would walk out with a story, a video, and proof that Derek's reign of petty tyranny had just been crushed by a woman who could buy the ground under his feet. Victoria looked at him one last time. "Security will escort you out. Don't come back." She turned toward the door, then paused, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. "Anyone who wants to keep their job, be here tomorrow. New management starts immediately." Then she left, shoulders squared, but her hands shook as she slid into her Tesla. 3 years too late, 3 years wasted. But finally, she was using her empire for something that mattered. For family. St. Mary's Children's Hospital. 4:30 p.m., the antiseptic air smelled of fear and hope. Victoria found Amara in the cardiac wing's waiting room alone, exhausted, still in her stained uniform, a soldier stripped of armor. "How is he?" Victoria asked softly. Amara looked up, eyes red with tears, suspicion, and disbelief. They're running tests. Heart defect, they said. He needs surgery. Victoria lowered herself into the seat beside her, careful, like approaching a wild creature she had already wounded. I know, it runs in families. Families. The word cracked from Amara's lips, fragile and venomous all at once. David had the same condition. Surgery at 6 years old. The realization hit Amara in waves. Shock, denial, recognition, and then something harder. Rage. You're her. Victoria nodded once. You're David's mother. The woman who watched us at the cemetery. Who watched that man put his hands on my child. Who stood there while I bled against your son's grave. Yes, the confession was ash in Victoria's throat. And you did nothing. Yes. Amara shot to her feet, anger sparking hot tears. Get out, please. Just get out. Her voice broke, the pain spilling raw. 3 years, Mrs. Sterling. 3 years I've raised your son's child alone. 3 years I've worked myself to death trying to give him what David's family could provide with pocket change. Victoria stayed seated, swallowing the knives Amara hurled, each one deserved. He asks about you, you know, Amara said, voice trembling, tears sliding unchecked. His daddy's mama. Wonders why you don't want to meet him. I tell him you're busy, you travel, you have important work. Each word was a dagger, but I never told him the truth. That you hung up on David when he called to say I was pregnant. That you called me a mistake. Victoria's chest caved under the weight. How do you know? Because David told me, Amara said, voice hardening like steel forged in pain. Every word, every rejection. And he died believing you'd come around when DJ was born. Her laugh was bitter, broken. He was wrong. A doctor approached, Dr. Elizabeth Hayes. Victoria knew her well. Sterling Medical's own. The coat's embroidered name carried authority, but her face carried hesitation. Ms. Brooks, Dr. Hayes said gently, the surgery will cost $47,000. Do you have insurance? Amara's face crumpled. Medicaid? But they said it's experimental. You're not covered. I'm sorry. Dr. Hayes' voice was firm, apologetic. Victoria rose, power returning like muscle memory. Dr. Hayes. The doctor's eyes widened. Mrs. Sterling, I didn't realize. That's my grandson, Victoria said, voice unshakable. Whatever he needs, Sterling Medical covers it completely. Dr. Hayes nodded briskly, almost bowing. Of course, prep surgery immediately. As she hurried off, Amara's fury snapped like a whip. Don't you dare. Victoria turned, startled. I'm trying to help. You're trying to buy forgiveness. Amara's words hit harder than any slap. It doesn't work that way. Victoria felt the full weight of her sins pressing down, suffocating. Then what do you want from me? Amara stepped close. So close Victoria could see David in her eyes, his warmth. His kindness, buried beneath betrayal and years of exhaustion. Her voice trembled, low and deadly honest. I want the grandmother he deserved, not the stranger you chose to be. Amara's voice was quiet, but every word was a blade. I want you to look at DJ. Really look at him. Understand what your prejudice cost. Not just money. Time, love, family. She turned away, shoulders trembling. And I want you to live with that knowledge for the rest of your life. The stakes had shifted. This was no longer about pride or recognition. It was about life and death. Forgiveness dangling by a thread Victoria might never grasp. St. Mary's Hospital. Pediatric Wing. 6:45 p.m. The family consultation room was built for Verdict's mahogany table. Leather chairs, quiet walls that absorbed sobs and screaming both. Victoria sat alone, the weight of silence crushing her. Dr. Hayes had been thorough. DJ's condition was severe but operable. The irony was a knife in her ribs. The procedure had been pioneered here at the Sterling Pediatric Cardiac Center, the center named after David. Through the glass, she saw Amara, bent over DJ's bed, clutching his tiny hand, whispering against 4 tubes and steady beeping monitors. A young mother's vigil. 4-year-old boy fighting for his life in a wing built to honor the father he'd ever remember. Victoria shut her eyes and let the guilt drown her. 3 years ago, the memory hit like a film reel on fire. Mom, I need to tell you something important. David's voice on the phone, excited, nervous, alive. Victoria barely looked up from quarterly reports, pen scratching across margins. Make it quick. Board meeting in 10. But you're going to be a grandmother. You're going to be a grandmother. The pen slipped from her fingers. Silence thickened. What? I know it's sudden. Sudden, David. You're 25. You have responsibilities. Future. This is my future, Mom. Amara and our baby. That waitress. Her tone iced over. Her name's Amara, David snapped back, voice wounded but firm. She's working on her nursing degree at night. She volunteers at the children's shelter. She makes me want to be better. She makes you want to be poor. Money isn't everything, Mom, says the boy who's never lived without it. Victoria was pacing now, fury cutting grooves in her office carpet. Handle this privately? Quietly? I'll arrange. I'm not handling anything, David interrupted, his voice hardened. I'm marrying her over my dead body, a silence so sharp it bled. Then I guess we have nothing left to say. The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone, pulse pounding. She called back twice, straight to voicemail. She never tried again. The memory seared her chest. David had tried again. 6 more calls that week, unanswered, rejected. She was too proud, too sure she was right, and then the accident. Tuesday morning. David's car crumpled on the highway. He'd been on his way to work, planning to propose that weekend. The ring was still in his pocket when they brought him in. Victoria found it later. Simple gold band, small diamond. Everything she'd raised him to consider beneath them. Everything Amara deserved, but it was too late. Grief had swallowed her whole, and guilt had turned into denial. Easier to erase Amara, easier to erase the child than to confront the truth of what she'd destroyed. So she'd hired investigators, not to help, not to connect, just to control, to monitor. The reports came every month. Subject working 3 jobs, living in subsidized housing, child born healthy, no contact with Sterling family. Victoria had devoured every word like poison. She had watched DJ grow up through photographs delivered in brown folders. First steps. First birthday. First day of school. She had witnessed her grandson's life like a voyeur instead of a grandmother. She had known everything and done nothing. Soft knock broke the spiral. Dr. Hayes entered, tablet in hand, expression carefully measured. The surgery is scheduled for the morning. DJ is stable, she hesitated. But, Mrs. Sterling May, I speak candidly. Victoria's voice was rough. Please. I've worked with Sterling Medical for 8 years, since the David Sterling Cardiac Center opened. I know the story. Of course she did. Hospital gossip was faster than the stock exchange. Your son donated his entire trust fund to pediatric cardiac research before he died, Hayes said gently. Did you know that? Victoria's throat closed like a fist. No, Dr. Hayes said softly, almost reverently. It wasn't just a donation. It was $1.2 million. David wanted to make sure no child died from something so treatable. Victoria's breath caught. The room tilted slightly, as though the walls themselves recoiled from the truth. Her son, her only child, had emptied the inheritance she'd curated since his birth. Not for cars, not for luxury, not for rebellion, but for research, for hope, for his family. Even in death, David was still protecting them. And there's more, Dr. Hayes added, voice gentle but firm. David named Amara Brooks as his medical proxy in 2021, and guardian for DJ. Victoria's chest clenched. What does that mean? It means, the doctor said carefully. He expected you wouldn't be part of their lives. He wouldn't have needed a proxy if he thought you'd step in. The words gutted her. Protecting them from me. Or protecting them from losing everything because of me. David loved you, Mrs. Sterling, Dr. Hayes concluded, standing, but he loved them too. He thought love would eventually bridge the gap. When she left, silence roared. David hadn't donated money. He donated faith. His last act was in defiance against his mother. It was belief that one day she'd stop choosing power over love.
Hospital cafeteria. 8:20 p.m. The fluorescent lights made exhaustion crueler. Amara sat hunched in a corner, coffee untouched, shadows bruising her eyes. May I sit?
Dude!
Victoria's voice was tentative. Amara didn't look up, didn't say yes,
Didn't say no.
Victoria sat anyway, sliding a manila folder across the table. David's medical records. It's from when he had the same surgery. 6 years old. Amara's fingers grazed the edge but didn't open it. Why now? Because you're right. I've been a coward. Victoria's tone was steady, though her hands trembled. I let Pride and Prejudice poison 3 years we can't get back. Amara's gaze lifted, tired but sharp. DJ asks about you sometimes, she whispered. Wonders if his daddy's family knows he exists. I tell him you're very important people, too busy for little boys like him. Victoria flinched as though slapped. He believes me, Amara added bitterly. Because children believe what we tell them about their worth. Victoria's chest cracked wide open. What can I do? Nothing. Amara's voice was hollow. You can fix his heart with money, but you can't fix what your rejection did to mine. Then tell me how to. Try. Something flickered in Amara's eyes. Not forgiveness. Not even hope. But the faintest possibility of a bridge across the wreckage. Start by understanding this, she said. Steady now. Your grandson is not a mistake to be hidden or handled quietly. He's a miracle. He saved me when your son died. Victoria's tears finally broke free. And if DJ survives this surgery, Amara finished, he deserves better than a grandmother who sees my color before she sees his father's eyes. Outside the cafeteria window, the helicopter that had carried DJ gleamed under floodlights, sterling medical logos shining cold and corporate. David's legacy in steel and motion, love turned into action, even beyond the grave. The question lingered like smoke. Would a billionaire's awakening ever be enough to heal wounds carved by years of prejudice? St. Mary's Hospital. 5:30 a.m., surgery day. The world outside was gray, air sharp with winter. Victoria hadn't slept. Instead, she devoured David's journals, 3 years of words she'd never heard him speak. March 15th, 2021, Amara makes me laugh until my stomach hurts. Mom would love her if she just gave her a chance. June 3rd, 2021, baby's due in December. I'm terrified, but Amara says I'll be a great dad because I know what not to do. Not. November 28th, 2021, Mom won't take my calls. But someday she'll meet her grandson. Love has to win eventually, right? Victoria shut the final entry with trembling hands just as Amara entered the surgical waiting area. No makeup, hair pulled back, still beautiful in the way David had seen her. Natural, unguarded, real. Any word? Amara asked. Dr. Hayes said 3 hours minimum. Victoria gestured to the chair beside her. Please. Amara sat, leaving space, like a barrier between them. I need to tell you something, Victoria began, her voice unsteady. About the day David died. He was driving to see you. Ring in his pocket? He was going to propose after your shift. Amara froze. The police report said he swerved to avoid a child in traffic. He could have hit her, but he turned the wheel. Died saving someone else's baby. Victoria's voice cracked, because that's who David was. Amara's eyes glistened. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know, David's last act was protecting a child. The same thing he's been doing ever since. Victoria pulled a document from her bag, pushing it across the table. Amara scanned it, brow furrowing. I don't understand. David changed his will. 3 days before he died, he left everything to you and DJ. His trust fund, stock options, life insurance, $1.2 million. Amara shook her head. That's impossible. And never. You never knew, because I buried it. I blocked the lawyers. Amara's face went white, then flushed crimson. You what? I told myself you were a gold digger, that you'd waste David's legacy. I was wrong. 3 years, Amara whispered, voice deadly calm. 3 years I worked 16-hour days. 3 years DJ went without, while his inheritance sat locked in an account. Yes. 3 years you let me believe David abandoned us. Yes. Amara stood abruptly. The papers scattered like wounded birds. You stole from your own grandson? Yes. The admission cut through the room like a blade. Families nearby turned to stare. I'm transferring everything today, Victoria said quickly. With interest, $1.8 million. I don't want your money. It's not mine. It's David's. It's DJ's. Amara's shoulders trembled as she turned to the window, rage quaking through her. You think this fixes anything? No, Victoria said quietly. But it's a start. Amara spun around, eyes blazing. A start. You let us live in poverty while you sat on millions. You let me beg for assistance. You let me believe David didn't care. You know what that did to me? To my pride? To my son? Victoria bowed her head, every word a whip. I'm sorry. Sorry, Docenti. Give me back 3 years of nights wondering if I'd make rent, Amara snapped, voice breaking. Tears streaked her cheeks when Dr. Hayes appeared, surgical mask hanging around her neck. Both women turned toward her like compass needles, finding true north. The words landed like sunlight after a storm. The surgery went perfectly, Dr. Hayes announced, her face breaking into the kind of smile doctors don't fake. DJ's awake. He's asking for his mama. Relief detonated in the room. Mara collapsed into the nearest chair, sobs of exhaustion and gratitude shaking through her. He'll need recovery time, but full healing is expected. Dr. Hayes hesitated, then added quietly the Sterling technique saved his life. The irony slashed through Victoria. Her son's donation, the legacy she'd dismissed as rebellion, was the very thing keeping his boy alive. DJ's recovery room. 6:45 a.m. DJ looked impossibly small in the bed, tubes and monitors surrounding him. But his color was better. Those sterling green eyes, David's eyes, were alert, curious, alive. Mama, his little hand reached for Amara with 4 free arms. Amara rushed to him. Hey, brave boy, how do you feel? Tired, DJ whispered, but my chest doesn't hurt anymore. Then his eyes drifted to the doorway, where Victoria stood frozen, her entire body trembling with decades of pride crashing into one tidal wave of regret. Who's the pretty lady? DJ asked. Amara hesitated, then met Victoria's gaze. A silent exchange passed between them, a test, a warning, a chance. DJ, she said softly, this is Daddy's mama, your grandmama, Victoria. Jay's eyes widened. Really? Daddy's mama? Victoria stepped closer, forcing her knees to bend until she was eye level with him. Hello, DJ. Her voice cracked. Not as important as you are. His face lit up with wonder. Mama shows me pictures of Daddy. I look like him, huh? You look exactly like him, Victoria whispered, her chest caved. He would be so proud of how brave you are. DJ beamed, then held up a battered stuffed bear. Mama, can Grandmama Victoria meet Mr. Teddy? It's been protecting me? Amara's throat tightened. Of course, sweetheart. As DJ introduced his guardian bear, Amara watched from the doorway. Her expression shifted, still wounded, still wary, but something softened. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. DJ needed family more than she needed vengeance. Hospital administrator's office, 9:15 a.m., Victoria sat across from Brian Murphy, the hospital's chief administrator. The man was sweating before she even spoke. Mrs. Sterling, what can we do for you? Victoria's eyes were ice. Explain why Amara Brooks was denied coverage yesterday. My grandson was nearly barred from surgery by Medicaid rejection. Murphy fumbled with papers. Experimental procedures aren't always. The Sterling Cardiac Center has performed this surgery 847 times, Victoria cut in. Success rate, 98.3%. Does that sound experimental to you? Well, insurance companies have, Mr. Murphy? She leaned in, every syllable a scalpel. Sterling Medical provides 31% of this hospital's funding. That's $47 million a year. Do you understand me? His face went pale. Here's what's going to happen, Victoria continued. We'll personally review every Medicaid denial from the last year, every child denied cardiac care because of cost, and you will reverse them. That could be hundreds, even thousands of cases, Murphy stammered. Good, she said, rising. You'll also establish a fund to cover future cases. The David Sterling Memorial Fund for Pediatric Cardiac Care? $50 million. Endowment effective immediately. Murphy's pen rattled against the desk as he scribbled notes. That's incredibly generous. It's not generous, Victoria snapped. It's necessary. If I hear about one more child denied care because of paperwork or politics. Her voice dropped to a dagger's whisper. Medico pulls all funding, permanently. She left him pale, sweating and scrambling to rewrite an entire healthcare system. Riverside Diner to 11:30 a.m., the bell above the door jingled, conversations hushed. The place looked smaller than yesterday, but different too. The staff clustered near the kitchen, whispering like kids without a teacher. Victoria strode to the center of the room. Attention, everyone. Dozens of eyes turned, nervous, curious. "I'm Victoria Sterling," she announced. "As of today, I own this restaurant." Gasps rippled. "Effective immediately. All employees receive a 40% wage increase. Full health insurance. 2 weeks paid vacation." The silence cracked, turned to disbelieving murmurs. The previous manager's conduct was unacceptable. This business will now run with dignity and respect for staff and for customers. Maria Santos, the oldest waitress, stepped forward. Her voice shook. "Ma'am, what about Amara?" Derek fired her. "Amara Brooks," Victoria said firmly, "is welcome back anytime's assistant manager." A thunderclap of gasps. A young cook raised his hand, almost shy. "Wait, you're really giving us health insurance? Full coverage," Victoria confirmed. "Dental, vision, starting today?" "But why?" Maria whispered. "You don't even know us." Victoria looked around at immigrant workers, single parents, tired faces who had survived too long on scraps. "People like Amara, because someone I loved very much believed everyone deserves dignity at work," she said softly. "I'm finally listening to him." DJ's room. 2:45 p.m. Victoria returned to find DJ coloring with fresh supplies markers, sketch pads, watercolors. High-end to high-end. "Did you bring these?" she asked. Amara shook her head. "Your lawyer delivered the papers an hour ago." DJ's trust fund cleared. Her voice was careful, distant. 1.8 million. Like you said, Ditz's money. Victoria nodded. "I know." Amara smoothed DJ's blanket. "I also know you could have kept hiding it forever. No one would have questioned you." Victoria's eyes burned. "David would have questioned me." DJ looked up from his coloring, tilting his head. "Grandmama, did Daddy tell you to take care of us?"
Yes.
The question sliced the room in half. Amara froze. Victoria's throat closed. And for the first time, she didn't have an answer money could buy. "Grandmama Victoria, do you want to help me draw Daddy?" The question hit like a thunderclap. Victoria's throat locked up, but she forced the words past the lump. "I'd love that." They bent over the paper together, DJ directing with 4-year-old authority. "No, Grandmama, his hair goes like this." Crayons rolled across the bed, colors bleeding into life. Amara's voice cut through gently, but her words carried the weight of years. "Victoria," it was the first time she'd spoken the name instead of Mrs. Sterling. "I'm not ready to forgive you." "I may never be ready." Victoria's hand stilled, her crayon hovering above the page. She didn't argue. She didn't defend. Amara continued, steady now. "But DJ deserves to know his father's family. You deserve to know David's son." Victoria looked up, eyes wide, voice trembling. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we can figure out how to be a family. Not the family we would have been if you'd made better choices 3 years ago, but the family we can be, starting now." DJ's face lit up. "We're going to be a real family." Amara smoothed his hair, whispering, "We're going to try, baby." Victoria put down her crayon. Tears blurred the stick figures on the page, 3 crooked hands clasped, a big house drawn like a fortress. "It's perfect, DJ," she whispered. Outside, news vans swarmed like vultures. The headlines screamed about billion-dollar foundations, a secret grandson, a scandal-turned salvation. But inside room 314, power was shifting. Not money, not influence, but something deeper. The power of love over pride. The power of humility over prejudice. The power of second chances over perfect first impressions. 6 weeks later, Sterling Medical Foundation HQ, the press conference room pulsed with flashbulbs and murmurs. Victoria Sterling stood at the podium, not alone this time. Amara sat in the front row, regal in a navy suit, no trace of the exhausted waitress she'd been weeks ago. Beside her, DJ swung his healed legs, the thin scar on his chest the only reminder of how close they'd come. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victoria began, her voice steady, her empire's steel tempered by something new. "6 weeks ago, my grandson nearly died from a heart condition that runs in our family. He was denied coverage because his mother works 3 jobs instead of 1 high-paying career." Gasps. Pens flew. Cameras snapped. Today, I announced the David Sterling Foundation for Healthcare Equity. $50 million to ensure no child is ever denied life-saving treatment because of their family's income or insurance status. The room erupted in applause. Victoria gestured toward Amara. The foundation's executive director is Amara Brooks. She knows the barriers working families face because she's lived them. Amara rose, her heels clicking like a gavel, and approached the microphone. This foundation isn't charity, she declared. It's justice. Every child deserves equal care, regardless of their zip code or their parents' bank account. A reporter shot up a hand. Ms. Brooks, is it true? You and Mrs. Sterling had no relationship before your son's medical crisis? Amara's chin lifted. Our family was complicated, but we've learned children's needs matter more than adult pride. Another question, what about Derek Stone, the restaurant manager? Victoria returned to the mic, voice sharp as glass. Mr. Stone is facing federal civil rights charges. The Department of Justice has confirmed workplace discrimination will be prosecuted, especially when it endangers children. Riverside Community Center. Later that evening, the room overflowed with parents, most of them Black and Latino working-class families. Folding chairs jammed together. Kids clung to tired mothers. Fathers leaned against the walls, arms crossed with skepticism. Victoria faced them not as a billionaire, not as a Sterling, but as a woman stripped raw by truth. How many of you have been denied care for your children? Nearly every hand rose. How many were told a procedure was experimental when really it was just expensive? More hands. Murmurs of anger. How many of you felt treated differently at hospitals because of your skin color, your accent, or your address? The room erupted, stories spilling out, voices breaking, fury boiling. DJ sat on Amara's lap, listening with wide eyes. These were his neighbors. Their children were his classmates, Stubby. It stops now, Victoria said firmly. A woman in the back, Mrs. Rodriguez, her voice fierce, stood. You're a rich and white lady. Easy to make promises. Harder to keep them when the cameras leave. The crowd buzzed. Heads nodded. You're right to be skeptical, Victoria admitted. I've been part of the problem longer than I've been part of the solution. Then why should we trust you? Victoria's gaze dropped to DJ, then back to the crowd. Because my grandson's life depends on the same system your children face. If I don't fix it, I fail him too. She inhaled, steady. And because Amara Brooks is watching me, she won't let me break my promises. Amara's voice rang out, strong as steel. That's right, I won't. Silence fell heavy, but for the first time, it wasn't hostile. It was hopeful. 3 months later, Riverside Diner, grand reopening, the line stretched around the block. The new sign gleamed, the Sterling Brooks inside, the space shone with fresh paint, modern equipment, and most importantly, respect. Maria Santos, once a weary waitress, now stood tall as general manager. She cut the ribbon with trembling hands. Amara stood at her side, not as an employee, but as a partner, the cafe's community liaison. DJ tugged Victoria's sleeve. Look, Grandmama, our restaurant is famous. Victoria smiled, not the practiced Sterling smile for cameras, but something real, human. For the first time in decades, she wasn't running an empire. She was building a family. The diner buzzed with new life. Staff wore crisp uniforms with badges that read team member instead of nameless labels. The food tasted the same, but the energy was different, lighter, freer. From the back, Victoria watched quietly, letting the real heroes Amara, Maria, the workers carry the spotlight. DJ darted between tables, greeting customers like they were old friends. His laughter rang out in a space once poisoned by fear. He's happy here, Amara said, appearing at Victoria's side. Children should feel safe everywhere they go, Victoria murmured. Amara studied her for a long moment. You've changed. Her voice, once edged with iron, now carried something warmer. David would be proud. Victoria shook her head. I'm not doing this for David's approval. I'm doing it because it's right. Amara's smile was soft. I know. That's why he'd be proud. A news crew swarmed the room, interviewing customers about the transformation. Cameras angled for the perfect shot. But the real story was unfolding in plain sight. A community rebuilt by accountability, equity, and a grandson's beating heart. Mrs. Sterling, a reporter called. Critics say you're just buying good publicity. What do you say to that? Victoria faced the cameras without flinching. Good publicity would be easier to buy and cheaper to maintain. This. She swept her hand toward the cafe. Toward Amara, toward DJ. This is harder, but it's what my son believed in. And it's what my grandson deserves to inherit. That evening at David's grave, they came together now, as they always did weekly visits, no longer drenched in grief, but in gratitude. Updates for a father missing from the table, yet still guiding every choice? DJ placed flowers, expensive roses this time, but he giggled as he added gas station carnations. Daddy likes the colors better. Tell Daddy about the foundation, DJ ordered solemnly. Victoria leaned toward the stone. Your foundation helped 12 children this week, David, and Amara made sure their families were treated with respect and pity. Tell him about the restaurant, DJ pressed. Amara smiled. Maria got promoted again. She was even talking about opening a second location. DJ nodded seriously and leaned close to whisper a secret only the marble could hold. Victoria caught fragments his mama's name, the words happy now. Amara knelt, touching the cold granite. David, your son is brave and kind and funny, just like you and your mother. She looked at Victoria. Your mother is learning to see hearts instead of skin. On the walk back to the car, Victoria's sleek Tesla had been replaced by a modest SUV, practical, family-ready. DJ slipped his small hands into both women's palms. Mama, do you think Daddy knows we're friends now? Amara kissed his forehead. I think he knows, baby. Good, DJ said simply. 'Cause I love both my mamas. Victoria faltered, breath caught. Amara met her eyes and gave a quiet nod. Permission. I love you too, DJ, Victoria whispered. More than all the money in the world. For the first time in 3 years, it felt like enough. Behind them, David's headstone gleamed in the fading light. The inscription read, Beloved son, father, and bridge builder. His love lives on. Because when power serves love instead of pride, even the deepest wounds can heal. But true transformation demands more than wealth, that requires the courage to change. Have you ever witnessed discrimination that wealth or power could have stopped? Have you seen families torn apart by prejudice, only to be stitched back together by love? If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe to Fate Tales for more real, powerful black stories that remind us love is stronger than pride. Remember, in a world full of division, be the bridge, be the change, be the love you wish to see. Because reflection is good, but action is better. Now you've heard the story. Question is, what will you do with it?